Good morning, East Bay. What is happening in Alameda, Contra Costa, and Solano counties? Learn about what's happening in our communities, an in-depth conversation so you know what's going on. We're talking to government, economic, political, nonprofit, and business leaders here in the greater East Bay. I'm Jared Ash, the host of the Capstone Conversation. I am joined by Eliot Temple from Glydways, an innovative transportation company that is doing work here in the East Bay. We're going to talk a little bit about their project in East Bay, but how the company is helping cities transform economic development by innovating transportation and the way people move. Elliot, introduce first Glydways and then tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Eliot Temple. I'm Vice President of Business Development for North America for Glydways. I've been at the company for coming on 6 years, one of the first founding employees that has led our commercial traction, and living in the Bay Area for 14 years. I just, through my personal network, really started asking around and getting feedback before our full scale development. And it really is true that the Bay Area has a natural forward thinking mentality, not just in Silicon Valley, but even in Contra Costa County, as an example. Glydways 8 years ago decided to solve for how can we move people most efficiently at the lowest cost with the best user experience. And it's quite amazing that when you actually focus on the rider and their experience, it unlocks an enormous amount of healthy output. First and foremost, it creates a smaller vehicle that you don't have to share with people. So you can have a personalized experience if you're disability, or if you simply just want your own space, which is what a lot of the data has shown in carpool lanes, which never have panned out the way we've hoped that they would, or Ubers and Lyfts, which add more traffic to our roads because people want their own space. Having that own space and at least having that option is really, really valuable to people. So if you can do that by having a smaller vehicle, amazing, right? But the smaller vehicle is lighter weight. The smaller vehicle allows for another lane of continuous flow. All of this requires less right of way and less infrastructure. And so all of that is fractional in size to other modes like buses or trains, which are expensive. BART is somewhere in the $1.3 billion per mile to build. Those are our tax dollars being spent on really expensive transit that is wonderful and it does get us to the city, but it's at an enormous burden financially, which takes away from more housing, more hospitals, more schools, et cetera, or even more transit, right? So we are all about more access. All of our systems are connecting existing transit, bringing more ridership to BART, to existing modes. And we're doing that at a fraction of the cost to build, to operate, et cetera. And so when you pass that along with current fares, it's really an exceptional user experience for the rider. So I think there's a couple important distinctions to start out with in level set. One is we are only on a dedicated path that is dedicated to that Glydway system that would be owned by a transit agency like CCTA, for example. And so that dedicated path is not open road autonomy. This isn't Waymo. This isn't Cruise. That world is solving for a very different problem. We are leveraging existing technologies that already exist today to move a lot of people at a fraction of the cost to build and operate from the transit agency's perspective, and at a user experience that we believe will get people out of their cars, which is their own space, their own lighting, their own music. They can kick back and relax. No stops between when you get on to the system and when you get off of the system. It acts sort of like a train, but we are, again, a disaggregated system, if I'm getting nerdy on it.
Tell us a little bit more how it works, right? Like, give us an image of what is this little car? How does it fit into a right of way?
Yeah. So again, it's always a fixed guideway system. So you get on the system just like you would go up to another system, and you pay with your phone, or you can pay at a kiosk with cash. which spits out a QR code that opens the vehicle. So you cannot open a vehicle without paying for a fare. That's first and foremost. Second, when you do open that vehicle, you're not hindering the flow of anyone else around the system. You can take your time getting in the vehicle. If it's you and your kids with the stroller, whatever, you drop your groceries, take your time. When you're ready, you press the green button. It closes the doors and it takes you to the destination that you had selected on either the kiosk or your phone. Again, when you're in that vehicle, it's almost as if you're already at your destination because there's no stops between. You really just are able to sit back for however many minutes that journey is, whether it's 8 minutes or 10 minutes, what have you. We operate at roughly 31 miles an hour continuously. This is actually quite fast when you consider that there's no stops between, which means our average speed is just a few miles an hour less than that. And so, a train can go 80 miles an hour, but if it has to stop and go and wait on people constantly down a linear line, it does take a long time to get where you need to go. BART is actually a great experience and actually pretty quick, but looking at transit agencies and experiences across our world and the United States, it's actually pretty inefficient, especially for the costs. Again, those tax dollars that we spend on transit is exceptionally large. It's billions and billions of dollars every year. And our system is a fraction of the cost, and we can move a similar amount of people.
So how many people could you move an hour on a system?
So our
I mean,
San
I know
Jose,
it'll vary.
that's the other really cool thing is we can scale the system by simply adding more vehicles. So we can always start out a system with less capacity, and then we can add more vehicles to the system that equate to a much larger capacity, upwards of 10,000 people per hour. For our San Jose Airport Connector project, which we won last year, and we are proceeding with and building that, start build will be 2026. That system is solving for 4,600, 5,000 people per hour. So these are robust transit systems. Again, making that distinction, we're not an open road autonomy shuttle. We're not what is referred to as a GRT vehicle that uses and leverages autonomous technology to drive all of its solution. We are very much an automated system, and we fall under the regulatory standards from the CPUC and others in the rail category because we're considered virtual rail.
Interesting. So in the San Jose connector, is that going from the airport to Caltrains?
Yeah, that's going from the airport to the Diridon station. It also will include an extension on the other side to long-term parking. When I say airport, I mean intra-terminal connection. So when you get off of a plane, if you don't have to go to baggage claim, you'll get on that vehicle and you'll be downtown in 8 minutes. And you and I both know it takes 15 and 20 just to get to the baggage claim or to the rental car or to your Uber, Lyft, et cetera. So to be able to just hop on a pod, which we call our glide car, get inside, press the button and relax for the next 8 minutes going through the beautiful Guadalupe River Park Conservancy and all the way downtown is going to be truly revolutionary. I mean, there's no system in the world that operates this efficiently, this quickly. What Glydways is solving for is pretty well known as PRT, which is personal rapid transit. That goes as far back as the 1950s. Morgantown, West Virginia is a system that still thrives today in a financial feasible manner. Ultra PRT has the Heathrow Airport Connector system that has operated flawlessly for a long time. So what no one could really figure out, though, is to your last question, is capacity. How do we move a lot of people with this type of better experience? And that's what Glydways was able to figure out. And we're based right in the Bay Area. We were founded here in San Francisco, and our development facility is at Momentum Station in Concord. We've hosted over 1,000 people, including hundreds of public stakeholders, elected officials. It's been an incredible journey. And why I joined this company was not just the emotional connection of solving for traffic ultimately, but the execution path was so clear on how we leverage existing technologies that already exist today to solve a problem that can take us through the next 50, 60, even 100 years with enormous efficiency and financial feasibility.
A lot to unpack there. Let me ask more about San Jose, right? 8 minutes from the airport downtown. Where are you building it? Is it a rise? Is it on the road? You talked about the nature conservatory. How do you not impact that?
This is something that the airport has not been able to solve for many decades, and part of that is because of the environment. It's beautiful. There's a gorgeous park that is just dead center between the airport and downtown. It's a large park, and currently, I think they struggle with homeless encampments there and things like that. But honestly, being able for more people to be able to access the park is really important. San Jose has been trying to solve for this system for a long time, uh, for 40 years or so, maybe 30 years, and they've not been able to really do that. And part of that is because of a beautiful park that is stationary right in between downtown and the airport. No one wants to put a train through that. No one wants to put a train through that has to stop, making it a burden on the community audibly, the noise and pollution that's attached to that as well. We must think differently about the way we have transit solutions. And what's great about Glydways, to your question, is we can actually build a system at grade in the park that's quiet, that just flies by seamlessly toward downtown, while also having access to the park. All of our access points, which is what we call our stations, are always offline from the main system. So that continuous flow always exists until you need to get off on your stop. But that the row of other vehicles behind you keep on going downtown. It's for each party. Accessing that park's important. We're able to do that because we're tired on pathway, fixed guideway system. We also operate elevated and tunneled. We were shortlisted for San Bernardino Airport Connector, which is a full tunnel, similar distance as San Jose. And we'll see how that one progresses. But yeah, we're really excited about how we integrate with communities. Again, this was never really possible for San Jose. And as you know, any city requires economic development arteries such as an airport downtown connector if they really are serious about attracting jobs and events and tourists and all sorts of other things that come with the value of a connector like.
In addition to San Jose, you have a project coming in the East Bay, in East Contra Costa County. Tell me a little bit more about that and where it's going, how you got the project, soup to nuts. Let's dive into that one.
Well, look, soup to nuts is Randy Iwazaki, who was the executive director of CCTA at the time, was very quick to understand what we were doing and the impacts that it had. And again, this is just back to that forward thinking and innovative mentality, but pragmatic too. I mean, he really understood, just like I did when I joined the company, our execution and how doing so really took a lot of the risks out of building something new without really trying to reinvent a lot of elements. And so he saw a very clear case, many cases actually, including the 680, diluting traffic along the 680. Iron Horse Trail was even a discussion at one point. But furthermore, there was just a much greater need along the four cities of Antioch, Pittsburgh, Brentwood, and Oakley that is an underserved area that is essentially a transit desert. And there's two BART stations nearby. There's some Amtrak stations, but getting to those is just not a practical way of commuting or doing things. And so the ridership speaks to that, by the way. And so does the drive that so many people make to Stockton and Tracy just to have jobs in the city. You should not have to drive 2.5, 3 hours each way to get to your family because that's where you can afford to host them. That's disgusting. 6 hours a day in someone's life, plus sleeping, plus work, leaves you no time for yourself, for any sort of enjoyment, for mental health. The impacts of this are huge. And I think we all believe that urbanization will continue, which is a non-political statement. I think urbanization is very real. I think there's very few Gen Z, culture kids that really just love and want to drive and be in traffic. Again, this is an older mindset. I love cars. I love motorcycles myself, but commuting from a predictable place to another place regularly should not be a daunting, soul-sucking experience that ultimately affects your family. So I don't know
Well,
if
I'm
that's
really excited if I could sleep in the car because I do that while I'm driving, which of course causes problems.
Yes, I wouldn't advise that.
Yeah.
sleeping in the car is totally fine. You know, once you get to the destination, the doors will open, which would wake you, hopefully. But yeah, it's really the most beautiful system that we're creating, and we have a full size, proof of concept, or we have a full operating system. It's just not a public certified system yet. So we're really excited about deploying our first system, hopefully in Contra Costa County. But there's many other regions and many other transit agencies that are on top of this. Atlanta, Georgia is another one. They've done extensive amounts of research over the last 4 years and are really committed to deploying a system that is referred to as ATN, so Automated Transit Network System, which is something that our technology falls underneath. There's several areas in Southern California that we're working on. There's a couple opportunities in the Midwest that are really exciting and sort of near term. Texas is extremely forward thinking, specifically Austin, and even Houston and a little bit of Dallas as well, where they really want systems that make sense. And they're very financially focused too there, which is again, why are we spending billions of dollars of tax dollars on transit systems that only move 10% of the people? We're very, very focused on more access because we believe that more access is more opportunity for everybody.
So when you're in the East Contra Costa County project, where is it physically going? Is it going in the right of way? Is it taking up a lane on the highway? Is it going through open space? Where is the land to sort of put this? Give everybody the picture of that.
So a lot of that's still being figured out, and I'm not in the best seat in this company to be able to speak to all of those specifics. But the right of way is very small compared to anything else, including a car lane, and so it does not need a lot of space. Think similar to like a bicycle lane of space or a pedestrian bridge type of safe space. Really quite lightweight compared, but it's being figured out. There'll be multiple phases across that 28-mile system, connecting 5 different train stations and 2 BART stations. First things first is to focus on the first phase, and I believe that will include hopefully the Antioch BART station and connecting that to a nearby destination, which I can't speak to just because again I'm not in the project delivery team lens right now. We are working very closely with Tri-Delta Transit, CCTA on this project and implementing it accordingly. This isn't high speed rail. This isn't BART. This isn't something that would blaze through communities with some enormous audible and polluting impact. The environmental is much more seamless, much more friendly to the community. And again, this is all about more access. So the ability to have 6 access points along that system is what we've designed for. If that will happen, we'll see. But the fact that we're even able to do that just goes to show you how dedicated this technology is to more access.
No, let's talk about the environment there. So what's the equivalent in pollution we're saving? How many cars are we looking at taking off the road with that East County project? Is this electric fuel? Do you still need the PG&E to have the right kind of energy mix on the grid? How are you getting your power? And let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's again pretty low level and very specific to each project. So I can only speak at it at a higher level. But for this project, my understanding is we'd move millions of people per year. Every time someone chooses to take our system, they're not taking another mode like a Uber or Lyft, which would be another car on the road, uh, um, or their own vehicles. I suspect it'll be quite a large impact for the region. It also will unlock the ability for developers to say, hey, we want to build housing along this system to capitalize on the access and make it easier for people to live closer to the city and their jobs than having to drive all the way to Tracy, Stockton, et cetera. But from a carbon emissions standpoint, our system is at least 6 times less than cars and carbon emission output, and about 10 times less than any sort of fuel related bus.
If I'm another city or another region in the East Bay, right? Most of the people listening to this are Alameda, Contra Costa, Solano County. What are if I'm a mayor somewhere listening to this, somebody interested in transportation, what do I think about to know if you're a good fit for my area?
Yeah, it's a great question. First and foremost, you have to have the forward thinking of thinking outside the box, the traditional boxes that we know. Second is you need to have at least hopefully more, 3, 4, 5, 10 clear destinations that would be areas of interest and access. And then some confidence in that ridership to help really support the business case that would hopefully attract private development money in conjunction with public money to get the project going, which is a much quicker way of delivering a project. Although that can be controversial to some, the truth is to incentivize a project, and to build it quicker is way more interesting for the speed and the rate of sort of growth that we're experiencing as a society, especially as we start to encroach on the AI world and the growth that will bring us as well. So we must think forward. We must work with partners and agencies to build systems quickly. And the way we do that is to not build $2 billion per mile systems that take 30, 40, 50 years to build 1 mile, which almost always doesn't quite make the cut of where people actually need to access. So again, much less cost to build, much less cost to operate. Those operational is paid for by current transit fares, which equals an environment that attracts P3 delivery, which is ready today to build that system. So in other words, we could build a system today if you have, again, the forward thinking, the destinations that you want to connect, and a right of way that's feasible. And so the right of way and the planning and design, you're right, that is highly complex and can even potentially kill a project. But because of our right of way width, we can go down the shoulder of an existing street. You can traffic engineer that into a system. Again, would not be open road, would be fully protected in its own environment. But the flexibility of our system is unreal. Is truly unreal compared to others. This is a transit system. So, how important is it to you, Mr. Mayor, to move, thousands of people from one point to another, whether it's a stadium, whether it's an airport, whether it's a common commute pattern? There's no better way to move people than a solution like Glydways. Doing that with an experience that people can count on. You're doing that with an experience that people actually love, where you're creating transit for the 100%. Right? So people that want to take transit, not are forced to take transit. This is another element. We must create transit that everybody loves and that wants to take. And then that will not only bring more ridership, but it will also bring ridership retention for many decades to come.
Along those lines, some of the biggest transit blockage areas are merging transit junctions, the best transit junctions where you have backups in the Bay Area is where we have bridges. To the East Bay, we keep in mind the San Mateo Hayward Bridge, the Benicia Martinez Bridge, the Richmond San Rafael Bridge are backlogs where traffic happens, not just because of tolls, but those are areas where you don't have mass transit. If you could bring in people from Solano County and bring them into the BART stations in Contra Costa County, or if you could take people from like the Hayward BART station across the San Mateo Hayward Bridge into downtown San Mateo, Foster City, Redwood Shores, those are routes that don't have other mass transit other than large scale buses. Could you work in maybe those areas?
Well, assuming that there's a need, right? So we would first want to check with the agencies to really identify a real need, that the buses are not sufficing, that the ridership is lower than they want. And there's an interest in growing that, like you said, from an economic development perspective, there's an interest in growing in that region and supplying that region with a healthier, environmentally sustainable, but also financially sustainable system. So if that's the case, these are great examples of where we can connect and where we would be probably really well fit. I don't necessarily agree with the bridges comment. There's been a lot more technology that's helped with bridge flow, but I do think that traffic does exist on bridges. It also exists everywhere else. It takes one accident, which happens every single day in our communities, to clog up a system. That, just coupled with our normal driving patterns, autonomy is not going to solve for that. The efficiencies that are predicted from everybody having a fully autonomous car, which is unrealistic and elitist to even think about, brings an efficiency of 6%. So why are we spending $120 billion on open road autonomy and solving for that? Which I'm sure we will one day. And I do understand a lot of the benefits that come from it. But why are we so focused on that
It's
when
so I
systems
can
like,
sleep while I'm driving. I thought that was covered already. Nobody's
well,
gonna ever cover with me again on this podcast.
while you can sleep while you're driving for 2 hours, right? Again, we have to take cars off the road. We have to
Right.
reduce EMT specifically in commute patterns, right? We'll
Yeah,
still have
true.
our car. We'll still have our car that you can sleep in or hang out with your family in on a road trip, or to do a nice dinner at night or whatever, for a date night or whatever. But these commute patterns, this is where traffic exists in our world. There's 4,000 cities in the world that need public transit, that have common commute patterns that are well known to be congested corridors. Only 120 of them have them, roughly. Don't quote me on the numbers. But my point is there's an enormous need worldwide to connect people better in our communities.
There's tons of other bottlenecks, right? 24 coming from Oakland through the Caldecott Tunnel to Walnut Creek, inches along. I can get from downtown Walnut Creek to Rockridge in 18 minutes during rush hour in the evenings. But if you're doing from Rockridge to downtown Walnut Creek at that time, you're looking at an hour plus. Everybody's familiar with that. Everything on 880 is a bottleneck, right? Between Oakland and Hayward or Fremont, even. So clearing up these bottlenecks through transit but the flexibility that you're talking about, when to leave, when to call a car,
Right.
could be essential at getting those cars off the road and reducing the amount of flow there.
Yeah, exactly. It does not need to be this hard. We make things harder on ourselves by sticking to the past. And of all the technology that's in this world that has made things so much easier on ourselves, transportation infrastructure is the last major industry that has been disrupted. And we are at the forefront of that with many projects, but we're not the only ones. And so you'll continue to see more and more and better transportation options, specifically in transit and public transit. This is, again, public transit should be for the 100%, where everyone can easily get to that station through micromobility or through a bicycle. You can bring your bicycle right on board with our vehicle, get to your final destination, and then maybe that very last 100 feet or 200 feet or even 100 yards is easy for you to access through either a bicycle or micromobility, or maybe you decide to walk because it only takes 5 minutes. But again, more access is more opportunity for everyone, and it's more quality of life for everyone. Just honestly, I'll give one example. I owned a business in San Francisco, very logistic oriented business. And with a different sales strategy, we ended up actually saving about an hour and a half a day. When I was working the vans and actually working that business every single day, all day, that hour and a half that we gained back, it felt like I won the damn lottery. It was the most emotional weightlifting experience. And that hour and a half resonates with me every single day that I try solving for systems, because if we save someone 30 minutes or 2 hours, it is goosebumps. It will give them goosebumps in their day, and it will give them legitimate time with their families. Invaluable, immeasurable. You cannot measure what that means for somebody. We have to stop with this mentality of sleeping in our autonomous car in traffic. We have to stop with this mentality of just going along with the way it is. We need to demand from our transit agencies a better way forward, and connecting where they need to connect to. BART does a fantastic job of getting people into the city, but there's so many areas that we need to connect to BART to make sure that people can get to BART. That the driving and parking in the lot is not really pragmatic for a lot of people.
Let's talk about the getting to the system, and you've alluded to that. Bikes on the system, being able to walk within the neighborhoods. You're talking more than 50 access points in the East Contra Costa County project. It- It'll vary at the end. You still have people who are going to be a little further than a walk, or who might not bike ride in some of those cases. How do you envision parking lots in some of these cases, right? Like, people now, like, if I go to BART, I couldn't bike ride occasionally, but most of the times it's a little bit of a distance I'm going to drive. How are people getting that, again, that first and last mile to your station?
So yeah, so first and last mile solutions are different. Until open road autonomy exists, where our vehicles can come off of that fixed guideway system and take you directly to your door, which we intend on at some point. Until that exists with confidence that we can depend on, it's going to be a multimodal approach, and it will always be a multimodal approach, right? Lime's done an incredible job of micromobility and enhancing bicycle and scooter access for people across the nation. And it's things like that that complement our system really, really well. But again, when it comes to moving people in that last 10 mile, as an example, system, that's where we come in. There's no solution to this day that moves people more efficiently with a better user experience than Glydways. And so whether it's 1 mile or 10 miles, we are the best way to move somebody. But when you encroach on the smaller distances, less than a mile, for example, there's many other modes that are much better fit for most people, right? Some will argue that I can bicycle 10 miles, I can bicycle 15 miles. Great for you. I can't. And I don't, and there's a lot of people that probably can't. And so again, how do you create a system for the 100%? How do you create a system that people want to take, that really get excited about getting on every single day? And so I can't say that I feel that way about the current transit systems that I ride, whether it's in Los Angeles or whether it's in San Francisco or elsewhere. There's just a lot of issues we're solving for. And one of the biggest things that you can do for safety, for security, and for financial sort of support of your existing transit is you can ride it. So the more ridership that we can bring to these systems, the easier it's going to be to justify more safety. It's just data, right? So the more people that are on a train, the less likely something is to happen. Our system, it's all about getting people where they need to go, the best experience, and then hopefully bringing more people to existing modes.
So two questions come out of that, right? Let's say you're in the right of way, possibly a shoulder or a median. How safe is this system from other cars on
Completely,
the road, right?
completely protected, full concrete barrier. We are a fully protected system. I really want that to be known, and we need to do a better job at communicating that. So for anyone that doesn't understand that, it's very, very much always the case for our system until open road autonomy exists. But even then, we will always have these high throughput, very fast modes of getting to where you need to go. Because so you must have that fixed guideway system for throughput, right? It's the bike messenger in San Francisco that blazes through every stoplight and every stop sign. He or she makes it really quickly to where they're going because they have throughput. You have to have throughput to be able to really get to where you're going quickly.
That's where rail really works, right? Is it's its own system. BART, no, there's no stop and BART for a rail crossing or something. And I'm the guy who bikes. I don't do it so much anymore, but I'm the guy who bikes 100 plus miles. I've got a group that I go up Diablo with once a month. And, there's plenty of 70-year-olds in that group that kick my butt because they're retired and all they do is bike a couple hundred miles a week. So I get that's not for anyone. Is the car, when we're just talking about that safety, is it a seatbelt or is it like the BART train? It's too small to walk around it, but is it just the comfy seat then? Or
Yeah, we have an amazing group that's designing our vehicles. Not only is it just aesthetically pleasing and really created as an oasis for everyone when they're in the vehicle, but everything from the material smells to the feel, all of that's being accounted for. We want the system to be addicting for anyone that's taken the ride. And so there are two booths that one booth that faces another booth, really designed for four comfortably, but you could fit six in there, right? If it's four little kids on one side and two larger adults on the other side, or four guys from the Castro, or six guys from the Castro, rather. Like, we're gonna fit in there. We're gonna cram in there and have a great time. We're gonna get to where we're going with no stops between. If you need to platoon two or three vehicles at once, you could do that too. But again, this is an experience we believe that will be addicting when people take it, right? And that's the big claim, and we're just shooting for that because it's all about the rider, and we want to make it about the rider. But yeah,
so
so there are seat belts though, just for comfort if someone wants to use a seatbelt. But probably never needed.
Comfy chairs and that experience matters. How much will this cost users?
So honestly, it's just very competitive to current fares, and I can't really speak to any specifics just because the first projects we're still planning and designing for. But in all preliminary assessment, it's current fares. For San Jose, it should be, you know, 1/10 the cost of the last time I took a Uber Lyft from San Jose Airport to downtown.
So, so you're talking relative to BART fares competitive. How how do you afford to build the systems? Is this East County project? Is the San Jose project? Is government funding this through infrastructure dollars? How are you building them?
Yeah, so just like any transit system, the cities or agencies will go after federal funds to help build a project. But what's wonderful is that with our system, even in San Jose's example, the subsidy required is a fraction of the total capex required. The rest of that is actually funded by a P3 developer. The P3 developer fronts up that money to build that project. This is part of why and how we're able to build more system for our communities in the near term and long term.
I liked how you're here, you're based and testing in the East Bay. We talked about Momentum Station with Tim Hale on episode 8. If anybody is interested in circling back to that, I think it is a big economic driver here in the Bay Area in the East Bay. It's not in Silicon Valley. And these companies are testing and want to pilot their programs here. They are innovating the world here in the center part of the East Bay.
Let me just add some color to that. Momentum Station and CCTA as an entity in general. And again, I talk with hundreds of agencies around this country. CCTA specifically, Tri-Delta Transit, Contra Costa County are some of the best people I've worked with. They are truly the most forward thinking, the most pragmatic, the most balanced. They really understand what they're doing. And your county and our county should be really, really proud about that. And we're even looking at a system for West Contra Costa County to connect, potentially more people to BART stations in West Contra Costa County. Those are early discussions and all of that. But again, what an incredible opportunity with an incredible county, and just happens to be in our backyard. I mean, any other city, Miami could have said, "Oh, let's do this tomorrow," and blah blah blah. Right? Just for me, it's meaningful. It really is. Everyone should be proud of these agencies thinking the way they think.
Awesome. Anything else people should know before we head out of this episode?
No, if you're on LinkedIn, follow us there. I think that's a good spot for a lot of updates. We're also on Twitter. It's Glydways. So it's GLYD, WAYS on the recording.
And we'll put that into the show notes. So for those of you who keep hearing me talk about show notes and all these links and things, you scroll up on your phone when you're in the podcast app. I know somebody was asking me that a day or so ago, is where do I see those show notes? It's right there in your phone under the podcast thing. We'll put that link. But we'll put the LinkedIn profile for Glydways, their website, Eliot's bio, and contact info for anybody else that wants to connect with him.
But really want to emphasize, if anyone has any ideas or thoughts or feedback, please, we're designing this system for everybody. So any and all feedback is greatly appreciated. We really want to hear what you have to say. So just please don't hesitate on sending us a message. I think it's info@glydways.com. Jared will post the site, and then you guys can find us there.
Eliot Temple from Glydways, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks for all you do too for the region.
Wait, don't leave yet. Hit subscribe. Make sure you get the weekly updates. We have a new episode every Wednesday for stuff happening in the East Bay. In the meantime, follow me on LinkedIn, Jared Ash, or check out our firm where we have a weekly newsletter and blog at Capstone Government Affairs on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us today on the Capstone Conversation.